All right, so we're diving headfirst into some serious tactical territory today, folks. ADP 20, Chapter 3.
Hmm.
We're talking about the Army's intelligence process.
And this isn't just some dry doctrine, this is the good stuff.
Right, this is like the foundation of everything.
Absolutely.
So before anyone even thinks about tuning out, like, oh, great, another acronym-filled snooze fest.
Yeah.
Trust me when I say this is the bedrock of making smart decisions no matter what your MOS is. I don't care if you're flipping burgers or driving a tank.
It all starts with good intel.
100%.
Knowing what's going on around you, that's the key.
It's like having that sixth sense on the battlefield, right?
Exactly. And this chapter is like your cheat sheet.
Okay, I like where this is going. So it's no secret that the Army loves to put its own spin on things, and the intelligence process is no exception.
Right.
We took that joint intelligence process, the one with 6 categories, and streamlined it. Now we're cooking with 4 steps and 2 ongoing activities.
Leaner, meaner.
Exactly. So why the change-up? What makes the Army's approach so vital for the way WE operate?
Think about it. The Army, we're always on the move, always adapting to new environments, new threats. We need a system that's agile, that can keep up.
Nimble.
Nimble, exactly. That's why we've got those 4 steps and 2 ongoing activities that keep the intel flowing, keep us one step ahead.
So walk us through it. What are those 4 steps and 2 activities that make this whole thing tick?
All right. Imagine you're staring down a new objective. You're in the dark, right? You don't know what you're up against.
Never a good feeling.
No, it's not. That's where plan and direct comes in. It's step 1. We figure out what we need to know to achieve that objective.
So it's like building a puzzle, but you don't have all the pieces.
Exactly. And you're trying to figure out what the picture, even IS.
Okay, I'm following you. What's next?
Next is collect and process. We're gathering every scrap of information we can, from the field, from intelligence reports, you name it.
Boots on the ground, eyes in the sky.
All of it. But it's not just about collecting, it's about making sense of it all, too. That's the processing part.
So we're not drowning in raw data.
Exactly.
Sure.
We're turning that raw data into usable intel. We're starting to connect those puzzle pieces, see what the bigger picture might be.
Okay, so we're starting to get a clearer picture, right? What then?
That's where produce comes in. Step 3. We take that processed intelligence and turn it into something actionable. Reports, briefings, you name it. Something commanders can use to make decisions.
Okay, and those decisions better be good ones, especially in the heat of the moment.
You got it. Which is why the next step is so crucial. Disseminate. Getting that intel into the hands of the people who need it most, right when they need it.
No point having a perfect plan if it never reaches the front lines.
Exactly. And weaving through this entire process are those 2 ongoing activities we talked about. Analyze and assess.
Right. These are happening constantly, right? It's not like we check these boxes at the end or something.
Exactly. Analyze means we're constantly digging into the intel, looking for patterns, connecting the dots as we go.
Okay, so it's not enough to just gather the information. We have to understand what it all means.
You got it. And assess. That's where we step back, look at the bigger picture, and ask ourselves, is this working? Are we getting what we need?
It's about making sure the entire intelligence machine is humming along.
Precisely.
So, let's go back to the beginning and break down each of these steps a little further, shall we?
Sounds good to me.
Plan and direct. Let's talk about that. We're talking about the foundation of the entire intel process here, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do we absolutely have to nail down in this initial phase to set ourselves up for success?
Well, first and foremost, it's got to be a team effort. We're not talking about intelligence analysts working in a vacuum here.
Right, because intel doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly. You've got to have intelligence, operations, and signal all on the same page from the get-go.
Because communication is key.
100%.
And that's where this idea of intelligence reach comes in, right?
Exactly. Intelligence reach.
So what is that exactly? I feel like that's a buzzword I hear thrown around a lot.
It's more than a buzzword, though. It's about thinking outside your immediate circle. It's about tapping into every resource you have at your disposal.
So like not just relying on your own little bubble of intel.
Right. It's about reaching out to other units, agencies, databases, you name it.
Cast a wide net.
Exactly. Because you never know where that crucial piece of information might come from. I remember this one time we were operating in this really fluid environment. Intel was spotty at best, and we were having a hell of a time getting a clear picture of the enemy's movements. We had some intel from our own recon, but it wasn't enough to really paint a clear picture.
I bet that was a little unnerving.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah.
But we got lucky. We were able to tap into some intel feeds from a nearby allied unit.
Oh, where?
They were using a different type of sensor platform, and boom, it's like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, we had this whole other perspective.
Yeah.
Their intel, combined with ours, gave us a much clearer understanding of what the enemy was up to.
So it's kind of like two heads are better than one.
Exactly. It shows how important that intelligence reach can be.
Absolutely.
The more information you have access to, the better decisions you can make.
Makes sense.
Which brings us to collect and process.
Okay.
This is where we take all that raw data from all those different sources and turn it into something we can actually use.
Okay, so it's like taking all those puzzle pieces and actually starting to put them together.
Exactly. You got it. Think of it like baking a cake.
Okay, I'm listening.
You've got all these raw ingredients, right?
Uh-huh.
Flour, sugar, eggs.
Right.
On their own, they're not that great.
Yeah.
But when you combine them in the right way through a process, you end up with something amazing.
Right. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So we're not just dumping all this intel into a bowl and hoping for the best.
No. There's a method to the madness. You've got your 4 main collection methods: reconnaissance, surveillance, security operations, and intelligence operations.
Yeah.
Each of those brings something different to the table. Different ingredients, different flavors.
I'm talking about boots on the ground, eyes in the sky, all of it, right?
All of it. And the challenge is making sure we're using the right mix for the situation. Then comes the processing part, actually making sense of all that raw data.
So if we're sticking with your analogy, this is the baking part, right?
Yeah, okay. This is where things really start to come together.
Where it all starts to make sense.
Exactly. Let's say you're collecting electronic intelligent radar signals, for instance.
Okay.
Instead of just seeing blips on a screen, we're processing that data, comparing it to what we already know.
So we're not just seeing random blips, we're figuring out what those blips actually mean.
Exactly. We might find that based on the frequency and the pattern of the blips, it's a certain type of radar system used by a certain type of enemy unit. Suddenly, those blips become a lot more meaningful.
That's huge.
Right. That's the power of processing, turning raw data into something actionable.
Okay, so we've planned our intel collection, we've collected the raw data, we've processed it, and now we have this beautiful cake. What happens next?
Now it's time to share the cake.
Okay, everyone loves cake.
Exactly. Disseminate. That's the 4th step. Getting that intel into the hands of the people who need it, when they need it.
And how we do that probably depends on the situation, right?
Absolutely. We've got options, secure messaging apps, face-to-face briefings, intelligence reports.
Each one has its own strengths and weaknesses, I imagine.
Exactly. You're not going to share top-secret intel over an unsecured radio channel.
Right, that would be bad.
It's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
But remember, even as we're going through these 4 steps, plan, collect, produce, disseminate, those 2 ongoing activities, analyze and assess, those are happening constantly in the background.
Right, they're like the
Yeah,
they're like the oven timer, making sure we don't overcook the cake.
I like that. And just like with that oven timer, those activities are there to make sure we're on the right track. Analyze means we're constantly looking at the intel, looking for patterns, trying to anticipate the enemy's next move.
So even if we're just getting started, that analysis piece is happening.
From the very beginning, let's say you have a soldier out on patrol and they spot a new type of vehicle they've never seen before. They might not know what it is, but just by reporting that observation.
They're contributing to the process.
Exactly. It's all about connecting the dots.
I like it. So everyone has a role to play.
Everyone. The more eyes and ears we have out there, the clearer the overall picture becomes.
And that's where assess comes in.
Exactly. Assess is where we step back, look at the big picture, and make sure everything is on track.
Making sure the recipe's working.
Exactly. We ask ourselves, are we collecting the right information? Are we analyzing it effectively? Is it actually helping us achieve our objectives?
Yes, the answer is no.
Then we adjust. We adapt.
We tweak the recipe.
Exactly. Because the battlefield is always changing, and we have to be ready to change with it.
And speaking of adapting, we got to talk about technology and how it's shaking things up in the intelligence world.
Oh, yeah. Tech is a game changer for sure.
No doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
just think about it. We're talking about artificial intelligence that can sift through mountains of data.
Right. Like way faster than any human ever could.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it can spot those patterns, those little details that might take us, what, days to uncover?
Days, weeks.
Mm.
Maybe we wouldn't even find them.
Exactly. And then you've got things like predictive analytics, which is like,
Trying to predict the future.
I know, right? It sounds like something straight out of a movie.
It's wild.
But even with all this amazing tech, we can't forget about the human element, can we?
Definitely not.
I mean, we still need people who can actually make sense of all that data, right?
100%.
It's not enough to just have the information.
Yeah.
Someone has to connect the dots, interpret what it all means.
That's where the human brain still has the edge.
Absolutely. We're not quite ready to hand over the reins to the machines just yet.
Not just yet.
So how does ADP 2.0, the doctrine we've been talking about, how does it all fit in with this rapidly evolving world of intel and technology?
That's the thing about ADP 2.0. It gives us that solid foundation, those basic principles that still hold true no matter how advanced the tech gets.
Okay, so the tools might change, but the fundamentals stay the same.
Exactly. We're still talking about critical thinking, collaboration, adaptability, all those things.
Those are timeless.
Exactly. You could have the most powerful computer in the world, but if you don't know how to use it,
It's useless.
exactly. That's why it's so important for everyone, not just Intel folks, to understand this stuff. Everyone on the battlefield has a role to play.
Because you never know who might spot that one crucial piece of information, right?
Exactly. It could be anyone, from the rifleman on patrol to the analyst looking at satellite imagery.
That's what I'm talking about. Everyone's a sensor. Everyone's a collector.
Exactly.
But it's not enough to just gather intel. We have to know how to use it effectively.
And that means avoiding biases.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's about challenging assumptions, being willing to admit when we're wrong.
Because our gut instinct isn't always right.
Not always. We have to be open to new information, even if it contradicts what we thought we knew.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't some theoretical exercise, right?
Right. The stakes are real.
We're talking about people's lives here.
Exactly. We have to get this right.
So as we wrap things up here,
Mm.
what's the one big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I'd say this. The intelligence process, it's not just for Intel professionals.
Right. It's for everybody.
It's a framework for success on the battlefield. No matter what your role is, understanding the stuff can make you a more effective soldier.
It can save lives.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive into ADP 2.0, Chapter 3, the Army's intelligence process. Hopefully you've walked away with a better understanding of how this all works.
And hopefully you realize it's not as intimidating as it might seem at first.
It's really not. It's all about asking the right questions, being adaptable, and never underestimating the power of human observation and ingenuity.
Because the best intel often comes from the people who are closest to the action.
Exactly. So stay curious, folks, stay vigilant, and keep those questions coming.
We'll see you next time.
Until then, stay safe out there.